Alright, what's going on, guys? I am what I would consider a casual PvP player. If I had to give my PvP skill a 1 to 10 score, I'd probably put it somewhere at a 6 to 7 range. I'm not bad, but I'm also not great. But even though I'm not very good at it, I still love PvP in the Souls games. I've been actively participating in it since the first Dark Souls, and PvP for me is the thing that keeps me around on these games. I'll typically play the storyline one time through with a character that's simply focused on PvE only, and then my second playthrough is going to be a build that's made for PvP. And so currently I'm working on figuring out what the meta is, and what kind of PvP playstyle is going to be the most fun for me. But I've done about 40 invasions so far, and I gotta say Elden Ring PvP at the moment is broken. And I know the word broken can constitute a lot of things, however PvP in Elden Ring is quite literally broken. It's not acting the way it was intended to. If you're somebody that's been actively participating in the PvP in Elden Ring, then you might know exactly what I'm talking about. But there are a lot of things in the game right now that are ridiculously unoptimized. And I feel that if From Software doesn't take the time to fix this soon, PvP is going to suffer. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there are a plethora of builds out there that people are actively using right now that can and will one-shot you and you have no way to fight back against. Now, the worst of these is the Deathblight build. Take a look at this. Basically, what this build is a combination of an incantation and a shottle that gives a proximity-based status effect. So simply by being near them, you become Deathblighted. Now, it doesn't insta-kill you, but your character becomes locked in the animation where they can still attack you and backstab you. Now, I survived the first Deathblight, but I didn't even have enough time to move my character before the next bar had already filled up. That is, by all standards, a one-shot build. And out of 40 invasions, I ran into that 4 times. Now, it is important to note that I was invading at around 120, and I may be wrong about this, but I believe that build can be made at around level 80. Either way though, there are a ton of clips out there of people constantly invading worlds where people are just spamming these builds in a gank squad and farming the invaders for runes. Now, this is only one of many one-shot builds that are out there. You may have also come up against the Scarlet Rot Dragon Breath, which has an insane range and will instantly inflict Scarlet Rot, or the Sword of Night and Flame, which will quite literally one-shot you. And there are a lot more out there. But here's where the dilemma with Elden Ring PvP rises. This is a game where there's supposed to be powers that make you feel like a god. All of these things are an absolute blast to use in PvE. So is this just going to be a consequence of the natural power creep in order to have a fun main game? And honestly, I don't think it has to be. I do think that with a few nerfs and a few tweaks to some of these builds, a balance can be achieved. And I do expect a few tweaks to happen. But where it stands right now, the PvP is almost unplayable for the average player. I know there's a lot of people out there that are really good, that are gank spanking with whatever they want. I've been seeing a few of G9's videos, shout out to him, but I am not that guy. And I know most of you aren't like that. But I don't think we should have to practice day in and day out to become PvP gods just to be able to compete in this game. Now, I'm not trying to go back to the invader should never win argument. We've had that discussion, which is why I'm invading in Limgrave at a really high level, because I know the people here are looking for a fight. These are people that are wanting to be invaded. I did do some invasions during my playthrough at around level 50, and those were fun, they felt great, I wasn't getting one shot. But at that time I was actively invading in the levels where people were just trying to play through the game with their friends. And at the time they were too low of a level to be using some of these things that do one shot. But I don't want all my fights to have to be at level 50. It's like I said earlier, in this game you're supposed to be feeling like you're a god. When you get over that level 100 gap and start using some of these wild and crazy spells, it's fun. It makes the fights extremely interesting and adds a whole dimension that wasn't there back in Dark Souls. But the problem is that there's a handful of outliers that are simply way too strong. And as of right now, the only way to avoid them is to play at a level where none of these spells can exist. But that's what hurts the most, right? If and when these things get patched, Elden Ring could potentially be the best PvP experience we've ever had. There is so much variety and so many of these Ashes of War that are just awesome, and unlike Dark Souls 3, this game is that much more involved. You can set up all kinds of situations, and even though two people might be using the same weapon, the Ash of War system makes every situation unpredictable. Trust me guys, when these things get fixed, this is going to be the best PvP experience we've had. And it might seem like I'm complaining a lot in this video, I'm not. When we talk about issues like this, it's so that the right person can hear it, and it ends up getting fixed so that at the end of the day, we can all have a better experience because of it. Now, we can't talk about Elden Ring PvP without talking about Gank Squads. With the removal of solo host invasions, we are now forced to fight 2 people at a time every time we invade now. And what this means for people invading at the meta level is that the chances are now doubled that somebody is going to be using one of those one-shot builds. But it goes back to what I was saying. When you're going up against 2 people at once in this game, the best tools for you are a lot of these new Ashes of War. A lot of the spells in this game are meant for crowd control. So for us players that aren't gods at PvP, as of right now we have to make a wager. Do we want to climb these levels to have more tools at our disposal, but risk going up against these one-shot builds around 50% of the time? Or do we want to stay at a lower level where we have less tools and less fun, but don't have to deal with all the broken stuff? That's not a decision we should have to be making. So I really hope all this stuff ends up getting fixed. I bet it will. From Software do end up patching their games at least a few times, and with so many eyes on Elden Ring, I imagine there's going to be a little bit more pressure to do so. But I really hope this patch comes a lot sooner than later. Now, something else I wanted to touch on too, one of the things that I was most disappointed about was that Elden Ring is lacking a 1v1 duel arena. With the game getting rid of solo invasions, it kinda seemed like a no-brainer to include one of these. And with the game labeling invasions as competitive multiplayer, a lot of us took that as a hint to mean there was going to be some sort of ranking system like we got in Demon's Souls. However, as you guys know, when the game came out, we didn't get either of those things. I think in order for the game's multiplayer to thrive for a long time, this is going to have to be a necessity. Eventually the game's culture will find itself, and we'll end up getting a lot of organic fight clubs where we can have those 1v1s. But there's too great of an opportunity to pass up having a multiplayer ranking system. For all the reasons I stated earlier, this could be the best multiplayer experience we ever get, and I really hope From Software decides to capitalize on that and give us an arena. Now, I have seen people glitching into the Colosseums around the map, and for those of y'all that don't know, the insides of those are heavily detailed, and it does seem like at some point they will find a use. So that does have me very hopeful that this will happen at least at some point, but same as for the patches, hopefully sooner rather than later. But guys, that's going to pretty much do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here. I apologize if I sound weird, I've been pretty sick for the past few days. But the next few videos I'm really excited for. I can't wait for you guys to see those after I make them. We're going to be taking a really deep dive into some of the better stories in the game. But with all that, I'll catch you in the next one.